Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Trend Report podcast. I'm glad that you're here today for what I know is going to be another great conversation with my guest today. And I'm happy to welcome Jennifer Ruckel with Freeform to the podcast today. Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you.
Did I say your last name correctly?
You did. You
Okay,
did. I've heard
good.
Ruckel but it's just Ruckel. Ruckel.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
often wonder about that. I meant to ask you that before we started, but there you go. I got it right. So,
That was right the first time.
so Jennifer, I appreciate you spending a few minutes with me, with our listeners today to talk a little bit about what it is, who you are, what you do, and a little bit about Freeform. So let's start right there. Would
Yeah.
you please introduce yourself to our audience and tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. So as you mentioned, Jennifer Ruckel, I head our sales department at Freeform. So I'm the vice president of sales. I work closely with our architecture and design team, as well as national accounts and dealer partnerships, also international distribution. And so those four sales channels keep me really busy. But yeah, I've been here at Freeform for 11 years, traditional path of starting as a sales rep in Denver, Colorado for Freeform, moving into a regional role. And now after I've been in Salt Lake City for 4 years as the vice president of sales.
So those of you that are watching on YouTube, thank you for that. But for those of you who are watching on YouTube, I just disappeared from the screen, and that was to close my blind because there was a reflection of sunlight from the car parked across the street, like right dead in my eye. So sorry about that, Jennifer. But so 11 years at Freeform, you started as a direct rep for them. What amazing journey that you've had at 11 years at the same company and making your way up through the ranks.
Yeah. It's really been a great experience. And I think it's been one that just not only speaks to Freeform as a company and kind of that internal potential, but I think it also speaks to how much I'm enjoying the company as a brand and culture.
Yeah, longevity is always a really good indication of a great company, right?
Right, for sure.
So I am curious. I remember back in the day when I worked at a dealership, this is a long time ago, when Freeform came on the scene.
Right.
And you guys kind of revolutionized the category that you're in. And I know you've been evolving over the years, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, but for people that don't know your brand, and you are a well-known brand in our industry, at least in my opinion, what exactly does Freeform do? What do you make? What do you manufacture?
Yeah. So I always say that we are a translucent manufacturer because we do fall into that space of resin and glass, but we really like to do what I always call just radical things with form, texture, and light, right? So all of the designers that we work with can really realize the possibilities of our product and, whatever they want to do, whether they want to heat form it and do an exterior sunshade system outside, or whether they just need space division. We're happy to do all of it.
So I love radical. I think that's awesome. Radical things, because I love that people are doing radical things. I think right now in our industry is a time for big, bold, radical changes and
Right.
radical movements.
Right.
And you're kind of leading the way from a product perspective of doing radical things. So it sounds like to me that pretty much if it's within your scope and you get asked to do it, you guys are going to do it.
Yeah, we do it. And we have a whole team that's ready to sign up for those radical things that aren't in our catalog of products, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, when you mentioned you remember Freeform, I'm wondering, you remember Freeform as a brand, but we actually came on the scene in contract furnishings even before that. So at the inception of this resin product that could encapsulate organic materials or simply textiles or color, that was due to Ray Goodson. So he was our founder, and Ray was a chemical engineer, and he started playing with this material and then just kind of took it out into the market. What could you do with it? And at the time, the company was called Simtech, and they produced a product called Imago, and that was for Knoll.
Oh, wow.
And so Imago was it is what our Varia is today, but Knoll encouraged Ray to, hey, sign up, get some big equipment. We're going to bring you some big orders. And it didn't exactly, start to flourish right then in that moment. So we, when you look at the history, he actually brought in his son, Tally Goodson, who was in Singapore at the time, happily working there as in software. And Ray said, you know, I think I'm onto something, but I need you to come help me develop it. And that's when we took the product itself out to architects and designers and just kind of said, what do you think? Like, we think we can manufacture this on a 4x8 sheet. We believe you could heat form it. We believe it's gonna, you know, beg to be lit. It's gonna be beautiful when lit. And there's, you know, a lot that we think can be encapsulated in the material. And so that's kind of where 3form started. And the company has been around for about 18 years. And I think that's unusual to hear because, as you mentioned, we have a strong brand recognition in the market next to companies who have been around for hundreds of years.
I was going to say, you're a young brand in our industry. 18 years seems like a long time, but in our industry of companies that have been around hundreds, 50, 60, 80, 100 years or more, you are a young brand in our industry.
Right, right.
So the product that I remember was the wheatgrass.
Yep.
In between the two pieces that could be used as screens and things. That's the product I remember. Now,
yeah.
I don't know when it was I saw that because I would really date myself if I could remember the year that I saw it. So, and I date myself enough on the podcast. I don't need to keep doing it. Right. But that's what I remember. Do you still make that today?
Yeah, we still encapsulate a lot of organics. Wheat and grasses, ironically, are still some of our top sellers. They often look different than its pure form in the past. Now designers like to take that pure resin and with that wheat, maybe make the resin a warm tan color or
Sure.
a punch of color, right? And so it does look different in the marketplace, but organics, textiles, solid colors are our standards. And then oftentimes we're asked to do, again, those radical things. We had a company, PepsiCo, come to us and say, we want to send you just a bunch of chip bags, like think standard Frito-Lays and Lay's chips, right?
Yeah.
And we had that. And so we've done that. We've encapsulated coffee beans, things that really speak to a customer's brand, right? And then you can imagine those as features in the space when you walk in or as space division around the workplace.
So as you just shared, and most people listening will know, big brands like Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Walmart or Amazon or American Express or whoever it is, right?
Yeah.
Federal Express, whatever. They love their brands.
Right.
And the more things they can put their brands on, the better.
Absolutely.
And you just offered a customizable way to accentuate furniture, other things inside a space by incorporating things from the company's brand into it. That's got to be a competitive advantage for you. I don't know that I've seen anybody else doing that.
Yeah. I mean, it started with just, a designer looking for something that's maybe original to the agriculture or original to just like the location of their customer. Sometimes from a branding, it's as simple as a digital print of their logo, right? Or an etching of their logo. But yes, we have a whole department that really loves to just like send me something. I want to see if it actually can be laminated in a resin.
Yeah. Can you do this? So it's like, what if? Is this possible? And then you guys take a look at it. So you guys have actually had a really amazing journey at 3form. And, over the last couple of years, you've actually done quite a bit of expansion. So tell us a little bit about that journey and how you've been aligning your additional new products into the overall brand.
Right. So I mentioned that, we started as a resin and glass manufacturer, and we also started with dedicated reps in the field, right? We refer to them as material consultants, and we have about 54 across North America right now. As we got into products like marker boards or acoustic solutions, we quickly realized that those were often specified in the FF&E category, not so much in the construction category, which, a lot of our products for years had been in the construction category. So we quickly realized that we needed to entertain the option of now working with dealer partners. And so in 2018, we brought a gentleman on board who had successfully done this for other companies. And he did a remarkable amount of travel, just getting out there and working with a local materials consultant, doing a bit of interviewing in the market, and picking an authorized dealer to partner with, right? And
This is an authorized office furniture dealer, the traditional dealer that we know.
that's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. And so what was really exciting about that is a whole new channel. And if I was still a material consultant, I would be so excited about those partnerships in the market, you know, for people to start talking about the 3form brand to the customers that we aren't exposed to because they're the dealer's customers, right?
Mhm.
And so we're really excited. You know, it has been met with the challenge of 2020. And
Sure.
so, and
What
so,
hasn't been challenged by 2020? Let's be clear,
right,
right?
right. Right. But as the leader for our salespeople, I just keep reminding them that despite all of the new processes for digital sales, this is still a relationship business, right? And so while we might not have enough face time with our dealer partners right now to really work with them and develop a trusted partner and become a trusted advisor to them, all of that will come. We have to just stick to the processes and habits that we know and be patient with the process. And we are really excited. I mentioned to you today, we have visitors at the factory today. We have 12 dealers all across North America, and they are as excited as you would imagine to
That's
be here and be
great.
traveling. Yeah,
So we're recording this in mid-June. This will not
yeah,
publish until July. We're recording this in mid-June. And so is this your first like big back event where you brought people back to your factory?
yes.
Yeah.
And the energy is fantastic.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
awesome. I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
we've missed people in our industry.
Right, right.
We
And I
really
think,
have.
you know, we have onboarded 64 authorized dealers,
Wow.
and this group has had that delay of coming and
Mhm.
visiting the factory and really learning our story, not just our story as a brand, but learning the stories with the products, right? So that they can retell them to their customers.
Mhm.
And so everyone is just really excited. We had a happy hour last night that lasted much longer than anticipated.
Well, you're not all blurry eyed. You're bright eyed and bushy tailed, as they say in the South, right? So you're good.
Right.
That's awesome. So you've got dealers back at the factory, and you mentioned you onboarded 64 dealers over the last year or so, right?
Right.
So can you talk for a minute about what are the criteria to actually be a dealer for 3form? Because it sounds like there's a bit of exclusivity that exists with this. Can you share some insights with that?
Yeah, I can, but what I would say is it's very different in each market. And I think, you know, we have seen seasoned sales representatives who have successfully sold through dealers for years. And so we have encouraged them that like, we're going to have an interview process. We're going to go through this, even though you come into it thinking like, oh, I'll probably pick XYZ dealer. Let's be open, right, to the process. And we have onboarded small dealers and large dealers. We have not hitched our wagon to one specific brand. You know, last night we were asking everyone to introduce themselves, and there's Technion dealers here, Knoll dealers here, Hayworth, you know, they're all here. And so we really just allow our reps to have a little bit of autonomy in that. Ryan will come into the territory, go through the interview process with them. And at the end of the day, we just select who we feel is going to be the best partner in that market. And it might
Yeah.
look different than the market we just were at a week ago.
So not to be too nosy about this, but
Yeah.
is it one dealer per market or do you do multiple dealers per
It
market?
depends on the size of the market.
Okay. So
Yeah.
in a large city like New York or Dallas or Chicago, you may have multiple, but a small city like Birmingham, Alabama, which is what I call home, you may only have one.
Right, right.
Okay.
And we haven't always onboarded two dealers right away, too. We've
Sure.
kind of left it,
Okay.
see how it goes. So we have a whole pipeline of projects that have FF&E specifications with marker boards and with acoustics, and then a space division product that it's made specifically for the dealers. It's called Divide. And the product that it supports is our flagship Varia product. So it's very exciting for them to have that product that you know as the 3form branded Varia product and have that category available to their customers, right? So we have that whole pipeline, and we immediately upon onboarding that dealer are starting to filter those orders to them. And then over
Wow.
time, of course, they'll be bringing projects to us. And so
Right. So I want to
that's
ask a question here, just for clarity's sake. You say FF&E, which stands
Mhm.
for furniture, fixture, and equipment. And if you work in the construction space, That actually is division 12, if you will, in the construction standards. The CSI is what they're called. So you've got a pipeline of business that is specified by interior designers that is typically sold through general contractors. Is that the business you funnel to the dealers, or does that still stay separate?
Well, I mentioned that we do projects like exterior canopies.
Right.
We do solutions that integrate into millwork. Those will
Yep.
stay. Those will
Okay.
stay in the standard out to bid with a millworker. A millworker
Sure.
will be our preferred
Yeah.
supplier.
And those fall, not to get too technical about the CSI,
Yeah.
but those fall in section 10, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I do remember some things.
So yeah, those are separate. We're treating them separate, but I think it's exciting for our dealers because we talk about that pipeline of business that they're going to be getting, right?
Yep. Okay. So you got that business, and then you got the FF&E business.
Mhm.
And then correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys also do OEM work, right? Where you're selling your products to other manufacturers like Knoll and Hayworth and Steelcase. I don't know who they are, but
Yeah.
you are doing an OEM side as well.
We do have an entire OEM side. Yes.
Yeah. And then you mentioned a few minutes ago, you've got national accounts, and then you're doing international business.
Right.
You're a busy lady, I think.
Yeah. I think OEM is not my responsibility. So
Oh, okay. Good for you.
That's one that I can like say, okay, that goes to my friend Brian.
Okay, great.
But the national account segment is a large segment for us too. And as you can imagine, we go after, the Marriotts and the McDonald's. Those are some of our national accounts that are really successful. And we have a bunch of new programs that are starting to ramp up this year that are really exciting too.
Well, I think those of us that have been in the industry that have seen your products, we could walk into a McDonald's and we could know exactly what that product was,
yes,
right?
you would. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we would recognize it because your brand, again, is so well recognized in our industry. So rapid growth over 18 years, because it has been rapid. You've started out with one type of product, and then you've added glass. Now you've added marker boards. Tell me about light art, because you had mentioned that once before. So tell me about light art and what it is.
Yeah, I'd love to. So from a standpoint of our family of solutions, we have your standard 3-form, which we talked about, and then we have light art. And light art is such a great story because Ryan Smith, who is the president and creative director, I believe is his title, started out working for Dale Chihuly, and he was in charge of those beautiful sculptural pieces that you know as Dale Chihuly, again, recognizable pieces. And he saw a need for something lighter, but still formable, right? Mm-hmm. And so he and his wife just started working with our resin. And as the story goes, they took their product to ICFF, and the Goodson family saw them there, and they were like, wait, I think you're making those light fixtures with 3-form. And so that partnership started, and Ryan and his wife, Anna, became a part of our team, and they're based in Seattle, Washington. And so they do a lot of light fixtures, and they have some really beautiful, standard, easy to specify fixtures. And then you can always go to them for those beautiful, gorgeous sculptural pieces.
So are those products available through the dealer community as well?
They are not. They're sold through the standard like agency lighting distribution path. Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you that aren't aware, Jennifer just mentioned an acronym I want to bring clarity to, because we've been missing trade shows, and she said ICFF, which stands for the International Contemporary Furniture Fair.
Right.
And that is held in New York.
Yeah.
And it's normally been in the spring, right? Like March or April, or is it May?
Yeah. I wish they'd just bring it back, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Put it in any month. Month.
No, considering we're having NeoCon in October, any month is good, right?
Right. Yeah, I think traditionally it has been in that spring month.
Okay.
Though.
Okay. So ICFF stands for International Contemporary Furniture Fair, for those of you that may have missed that little acronym. So I think it's a phenomenal story, and I really like it. And I love the fact that we're talking about something unrelated to furniture, but yet impacts furniture in a lot of different ways. Because I think most of the dealer community listening understands how they can incorporate 3-form products into their environment, right? Whether it's with screens and you add them to the top of a panel system, or I've seen your product hang as a modesty panel on a desk. And there's so many options with it, not just with furniture, but I mean, I think that's like really great. But you mentioned something a second ago I want to talk about, which is, you talked a little bit about digital, and you mentioned relationships and the challenges we faced in 2020 and building relationships with people because we haven't had that face-to-face opportunity. What are you guys doing as it relates to digital, and how are you transforming the way you go to market?
Yeah. So I hope that when I was saying that, what I intended to convey, that I think the concept of relationship selling that's been around for a long time is here to stay.
Mhm.
I think it's a testament to how excited people are here right now visiting our factory, right?
Mhm.
That people want relationships. They want to build trust with one another, and I want to become that trusted advisor to them, right? And so I think even in the digital age of the advancement of sales tools, it's still, relationship selling is still an important tactic to master, right? But a couple of years ago, we started, acknowledging that e-commerce and this frictionless experience was really creating a lot of, changes
Mhm.
in how we as consumers are entering various industries. And I would say ours too, right? Not just my experience of buying something off Amazon or Target's website, right?
Mhm.
Um, and we just looked at it and thought we need to really start building a strategy that's both accompanies things that our marketing team is trying to do, as well as sales. And I feel really lucky because I have a great partner here at 3Firm named Carly Slocum. She came on board a couple years ago from the medical industry, and she really has worked really hard on our digital transformation. Everything from increased web traffic, increased media placements. The social media outreach is fantastic. And all of that is in the spirit of lead generation, which feeds back to our sales reps, right?
Mhm.
So whether it's leads from these resources, media placements, or whether it's from Material Bank, or whether it's leads just from our own website, someone
Mhm.
ordering a sample from our website, we are really conscious of what we're doing with those leads. So one of the tools that we invested in, I think you and I talked about this, or maybe I mentioned it when you and I were both on a Clubhouse. I bet it
Right.
was,
Because
maybe.
that's how we met.
Um,
We actually met on Clubhouse. So yet another
yeah,
podcast guest that's joining me from Clubhouse. So that's awesome.
yeah. So we started looking at, well, what are the tools that are out there that are really sales enablement tools, and which ones really give us a good ROI, right? And
Mhm.
so we leaned into a program called Showpad. And I think that you and I maybe talked about that a little bit, but it's more
Yep.
than just a content management tool. But Carly and I really liked it because it did take all of those digital assets and put them squarely where our reps need them. We can manage that content really easily. We can, that ROI that I talked about is that, we can look at the content that we're sharing with the reps, that the reps are sharing to their prospects, and we can see how many times they're sharing the assets. So we know, oh, that asset is something that the reps really value, right?
Mhm.
And then the rep can look at maybe the email that they sent, and they can see how much time their prospect spent, looking at the video or reading it over. They can see if they downloaded it, which, is maybe an indication that they shared it with other team members.
Mhm.
And so it's just been a really great resource, not only to just have all those digital assets there, but it really helps us have very targeted content and take a look at whether that content is being effective.
Sure. Okay. So there are three things I want to break down here because I'm like all excited now because you reminded me of this. So we were in a Clubhouse room together and we were talking about the future of sales.
Yeah.
You came up on stage and I brought up the term sales enablement, and we had a nice little dialogue about sales enablement and what does that mean. We'll save that for another deep dive on the podcast because it's an important conversation, right? Or come join us on Clubhouse. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah, we do.
But sales enablement is about putting marketing in front of sales,
Right.
and marketing giving sales all the resources that they need to do their job.
Right.
You're doing that by giving them content. You're giving them social media posts, articles, blogs, other things, digital brochures, anything that they need to do their job.
Yeah.
You're giving your sellers those tools. And then you enabled them with a technology platform that allows for tracking and analytics.
Right.
So that not only can the sales reps see how effective what they've done is, you get to see what the sales reps are gravitating to so that you and your marketing counterpart can create more of that
Right.
specifically for them, right?
Exactly.
So I'm going to use the example. I'm a seller for 3form. You written a blog. I grabbed the blog out of Showpad. I emailed the blog to my email followers list and posted on my social media. And I can see who opened the email, how long they opened the email, if they clicked on it, and if they downloaded it. Right. And then I share it on social media, and I get to see the social media analytics to go along with it to know that it's effective. And though we may not put a true call to action in everything that we do,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
always an implied call to action.
Right.
Reading something, somebody might comment on it, somebody might email you back and say, oh, I really like this, and those kinds of things. In that 1 minute that I just outlined, that you just underscored why every manufacturer, every dealer, anybody in our industry needs to embrace a sales enablement strategy, because you're getting the data for your clients.
Yes.
You're getting the information in order to go contact them. And this is how I'm going to wrap this up. And you've heard me say this before. Traditional sales are dead. Relationship building is king. Well, how do you build relationships? You build relationships that are around know, like, and trust. And you build those relationships. One of the ways that you can build those relationships is by producing content and sharing things with your audience and social media and communicating with potential customers. All this is about you seeking to be found rather than seeking to find. Our industry has been so focused on, let's go find a new customer. Let's go find this one. Let's go knock on this door. Let's go call on this person. Now, with this digital transformation that's happened, we have to seek to be found. And that means we have to create content. We have to be visible. We have to be out there so people find us when they start searching for things.
And the best thing I did is find a marketing partner who truly is an expert in what she's supposed to be doing. And then what I have to do is, again, use that sales enablement tool, kind of boil it down to like maybe just 3 call to actions, right? So a rep can really focus on like not get overwhelmed with these digital tools, right? And so I have to boil it down and provide clarity around those 3 call to actions. And then, I think, I'm glad we agree that some of the traditional sales in terms of like relationships and everything is here to stay. But even I think digital sales has catapulted now in the middle of the pandemic. But 3form, as long as I've been here, has always leaned into these tools. And a lot of it goes back to, again, we sell a material that can do anything. We provide the hardware, we provide lighting. And so when an architect had a concept and I was in the field as a sales rep, I said, let's get on a go-to meeting with my fabrication expert, my lighting expert in Salt Lake City. Let's look at your drawings. And that's where, you really become a trusted partner and you help them execute that specification. You partner with a local company that you trust to do the installation. And so I think we did have a little bit of an advantage because that was already part of how we went to business. That's how we connected our customers outside of Utah with our experts in Utah. And it was through those tools. And now we use Loom and we Zoom and we have Showpad. And so I kept telling our sales force, I think as we come back into the office, we're so looking forward to seeing everyone, but these digital selling strategies are here to stay, right?
Absolutely. Say that again. Yes. Say that again. The digital strategies are here to stay. To anybody listening to this call, please start embracing digital strategies.
If you think about it just simply from the return to office, not all of our customers, and let's talk about just the A&D customers, not all of them are going to return to the office. And then some of those offices are not going to let manufacturers come in, maybe at the same pace or cadence, at the same schedule. They may start to limit how many touch points we have with them, right? And that's okay. But the bottom line, I think, is all about those rules of engagement are changing, and we have to meet our customers where they're at, right? And these digital tools are allowing us to do that. And by having a really effective website, which I'm excited about just our future marketing strategies, because there is a lot that's coming on how we are just embracing that web tool as a way to visualize, create a quote, and place an order. And all of that is coming, right? It's going to be really good. But I think we had a little bit of a running start, just because we had a need to use those
Sure.
experts here.
So if you've been listening for the last 30 to 45 seconds, I want you to hit the back button and I want you to go back and I want you to listen again to what Jen said about working with the A&D, how it's changing, the challenges that are in front of us. Because ironically, my column that ran in the business of furniture today was titled, "Is the Lunch and Learn Dead?" And it goes through the whole reason why I think the lunch and learning is dead, and why I think one of our biggest challenges coming out of this is working with specifiers. And let's be clear, you are an A&D driven brand. You get specified by them. They are your top most important client. I'm just saying that for you, but I'm going to assume they're an important specifier for you. And getting in front of them is paramount to you. And you just described some of the challenges that our industry is facing. So guys, if you're listening to this, hit that back button about 3 or 4 times and go back and listen to what she said again, because it is so important. And I want to continue this conversation. I'd love to actually, we'll sidebar and we'll talk to you. I definitely want to get you to come back in Clubhouse and let's talk about this in Clubhouse again. And maybe we can do a LinkedIn Live or something about this as well, because this is so important.
Get Carly, our VP of marketing, on there too, because a lot of what I've really appreciated about her is that partnership and that lead generation that we all need to be, looking at, and how many leads are coming in. And then I'm watching them to see they're in this, we developed a queue. So they sit in a queue for us to qualify them. I'm looking to see, does a rep then link it to a project in their CRM, right? And does that project get quoted, and does it become an order, right? We're tracking it all the way through. And Amanda Schneider, right?
Yes, very well.
She was on, I don't remember. If it says Amanda Schneider, I just tune in, like whatever.
I hope you do the same thing when it says Sid Meadows. Okay, let's just be clear.
But she was talking to someone, and she said, nobody, and I'm paraphrasing, but the concept was, don't worry about a new product, right? There are plenty of space divisions. There's plenty of task chairs. Think about processes. And when I heard her say that, and I was just like, yes, thank you, because we are focused on radical things that are transforming how we do business. We are focused on radical processes. We have radical products, right?
Yep. So she was on my podcast. Oh gosh, last year sometime. She was on my podcast in like early 2020, I believe. She was on my podcast. And we'll find it. We'll drop it in the show notes for you guys listening. And that's one of the things she said. And I'm going to quote her almost. Our industry will be transformed not by product innovation, but by process innovation. And it could not be more accurate. And that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about how we continue to think about how we go to market, whether it's now through dealer partnerships or our digital strategies. It's all new. It's all going to take time, but we're really enjoying kind of figuring it all out.
I love it. And by the way, to the dealer community listening, all of this, or anybody listening for that matter, all of what she's talking about generates a lead. And that lead is sent to their local rep, that is then sent to an office furniture dealer for a customer that needs to buy something that they saw on 3Form's website. And guess what? If they're buying some screens or a light fixture or a marker board or a glass board, they're likely buying something else. So not only are you getting leads and you're tracking them, Jennifer, you're giving leads to the dealer where they can sell other products that you don't have.
Right. And we've been encouraging our reps that, as you're being brought in on a project, talk to your dealer partner about that project for the exact same reason you just highlighted, right?
So throughout my entire career, whether I was a salesperson at a manufacturer or a sales leader at a manufacturer, you go sit down with a dealer principal or a VP of sales at a dealer, and you ask them the question, what can I do to support you, or how can I help you?
Yeah.
You know what their answer is?
Tell me. I want to know.
Bring me more leads.
Good.
That's exactly what you're doing. You're bringing them leads and you're helping them be found by customers that maybe they weren't already connected to. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And guys, again, listen, I want you to think about who 3Form is and what they're doing and how they've invested in that. This is a perfect example of why everyone should be invested in it. So Jennifer, I really appreciate the conversation. I got one more thing I want to ask you because we are running out of time and I want to be respectful. You got clients there at the factory, but one of the things we talked about in our prep call, which I always have a prep call with my guests to talk about just kind of the flow of the podcast. And one of the things we talked about in the prep call was the importance of mentoring to you and the difference between mentoring and sponsorship. And having come up through 3Form for, 11 years out of their 18-year history, you've had a great career there. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts about this mentor versus sponsorship and what it means to you.
Well, first, I think in our conversation, I mentioned to you that I heard this concept for the first time in 2020, and it was under the umbrella of equity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the DEI. It was like the biggest conversation, and I really took it to heart and thought about. I have been a mentor. I have been mentored, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I started to understand that critical difference in sponsorship versus mentorship, and I always summarize it by saying that I think the difference in a sponsorship relationship versus mentorship is simply the dynamic of the position of influence. And I realized that I am in a position of influence, right? And so mentoring and coaching happens very unintentionally, organically, all day long, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can be more purposeful. You can have that regular one-on-one mentoring, but just simple mentorship or coaching, anyone can do and should do. But a person can only truly be a sponsor if they're able to create an opportunity for the person, that you're mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of look at it as you're otherwise unable to access this position if you didn't have a sponsor, right? So your sponsor not only has maybe more experience than you in a certain area, but they have the ability to bring you up alongside them.
Okay.
And so when you think about that and you think about diversity and equity and inclusion, I really started to think about, of course, our industry is dominated by men, right? And I was thinking about, like, how can I sponsor more women? How can I sponsor more women of color? How can I sponsor any sort of minority group? We're in the middle of Pride Month, and I think about the LGBTQ community too, right?
Yep.
And so how can I help sponsor? And I think the impact to our environment is really substantial, because the more diversity you have at the table, the better the outcomes are.
That is so very powerful, right? And excuse me, I was recently doing some work for somebody and I was trying to find a diverse group of people to be represented on a panel
Mm-hmm.
within our industry. It was really hard.
Yeah.
It was really hard. And unfortunately, most people look like me,
Right.
a gray-haired white man. Most people look like me.
Right.
And it was so hard to find a group of people that truly represented our world,
Right.
that whether they were Asian, African American, gay, bi, lesbian, whatever you want to call it, it's sexual orientation differences,
Right.
women of color. I mean, it just was so hard to give it a 10 people that were
Right.
within our industry.
Right.
And it just goes to underscore the need for diversity in our industry in a really big way. And that's also another thing we could talk about for a whole nother hour. But I would like for you to tell me, be a little specific about sponsorship.
Okay.
Like, so I get, obviously I'm a coach, so I understand fully what coaching is. I understand mentoring because I've had several mentors in my life, and mentors typically share their experience with you and say, oh, I did this or I did that, and answer a question for you that says, well, you should do this or you should do that. Coaches help you discover the path. Mentors kind of tell you about their path and tell you what they would do if they were making the same decision. What is a sponsor? What does a sponsor do for you?
So when I think about sponsorship, what I think about, again, it's like I am in a position of influence. I'm behind the curtain looking at these initiatives that we have coming down the road.
Mm-hmm.
If I know that we are going to be crafting a new department or a new process and we're going to need someone to lead that, that's where I say, I'd like to recommend this person. And I intentionally make sure that it's someone who has, some diversity. And so I
Okay.
think it's more about just looking for opportunities to really say, this person is the right person for the job.
Okay.
And honestly, when I was looking at mentoring and sponsorship, I thought to myself, I have definitely had someone sponsor me. I
Mm.
just didn't think about that, right? I didn't think about what that looked like. Um, and
Do you,
again, I
can you
think it's just,
share? Can you share who sponsored you, or do you want to share who sponsored you?
well, I mentioned it to him. His name's Dave Edwards. I used to work for him at Three Farm, and he's such a humble man. I said, thank you so much for shining a light on me, and asking the executive team to consider me for your replacement when you moved on and I became the VP of sales. And he was humble. He said, that's not how it happened at all. Everyone, thought of you, but I know that he
Yep.
probably had something to say about it. And so I think that successful sponsorship looks like an experienced person that has that influence, that has that ability to make room for you at the table, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I really appreciate that. And I think back to how that's impacted me in my life.
Yeah.
And I never, until you mentioned it, I never really thought about it as sponsorship.
Yeah.
But he was a mentor to me for a really long time, but he was also my sponsor. And I didn't realize it until I heard you talk about it. His name was Bob Kimball, and he was the vice president of global accounts at Hayworth when I worked at Hayworth. He has since passed.
Yeah.
And the impact that he had on my career is unbelievable. The things that he taught me, but he did exactly the same thing. He shined a light on me when
Yeah.
questions come up at the table as to who should fill these seats.
Yeah. He was
And
probably actively speaking
yes,
about you when you weren't there. And
yes,
that's
correct.
sponsorship.
That's correct.
It's
Love it.
embarrassingly simple concept,
Mhm. Yeah.
honestly. But I think when you are in a position of influence, mentoring might not be enough,
Mhm.
right? That
Yep.
sponsorship is the most important thing to think about.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the insight on that, the education from my perspective. And I would say to everybody listening, if there's somebody in and around your world that you can sponsor to help rise up,
Yeah.
please do.
Yeah.
Because our industry needs new young people, and we need people of diversity coming into our industry to help our industry thrive even more. And so I'm excited about this. I'm excited about you sharing it. But more importantly, I'm excited about seeing you and meeting you in person in October
That'll
when
be great.
NeoCon happens, because
Forward to
it's
that.
gonna be really fun. Have you registered yet?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I registered the other day too, so I'm excited about it. I just got I don't want to wrap up with this, but I just got back from the spring breakout trip that I was on. Again, we're recording this in June, but it was so much fun connecting with people.
I
It was
know.
so much fun to actually see people and
Yeah.
to talk to people and to shake hands and hug people, because we've
Yeah.
missed that so much. And you're
Right.
experiencing that this week at your factory with your
Yeah.
12 dealers
Well,
over
and
there.
our industry is the best for that. I would
Yes.
put this industry up against any other. I always tell some of the younger people that work for me, like, I'm never going to surprise you and resign and go to work for, name anything else.
Mhm.
It's always going to be in this space. These are my people, and I look
Mhm.
forward to just gathering again so I can see everyone.
Absolutely. It's coming. It's coming soon.
Coming.
Jennifer, it was awesome having you today. If our audience would like to reach out to you and connect with you, what is the best way for them to reach you?
I'd love to receive an email. It's just my first and last name at 3-form.com, right?
Okay.
I also feel free to reach me by phone. If you look me up on our 3-form website, see my phone number, call me. I would love to talk.
Okay, that's awesome. So we will link your email address, the 3Form website, down in the show notes, as
Yep.
well as a link to Showpad. And then we'll also link your LinkedIn profile there so people can find you there. And we
Great.
will link to 3Form social media platforms as well. They'll all be down in the show notes, guys. So you can click on that and go check it out. Again, Jennifer, thank you very much for being here. I super appreciate you. And guys, we'll see you next week with another great conversation. Have a great day.